Welcome to the marketing section of this entire training program. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of indicators as to what we're going to be covering here. Yes, marketing in terms of what it is, but I'll tell you what I'm not going to be doing so you're fully aware. This isn't going to be us looking at like Facebook or YouTube and looking to do like a video campaign or something of that sort where it's you end up sending this out there to a certain demographic of people and all these different people see it. And then you kind of go back and then you kind of reevaluate how many people watched the video, how long they watched the video for. And then you send another retargeted message to them. Maybe you start geotagging their phones if they're going into, if you're selling in like, for instance, if you're selling cars, for instance, and you want to target everyone who walks out of the opposing car dealerships, anything of that sort. I'm not going to focus on those things because they can change all the time. What was available to us last year as far as a strategy was concerned isn't or may not be as useful this year because other things have come out. I don't really see the value in me really putting that into this marketing section. I want this to be something that you can look at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and have it still make sure it's still relevant to you. As far as those kind of strategies are concerned, I think a lot of people out there on YouTube are giving away great ones. I also know that I will be doing a lot of those on my YouTube channel, so you should certainly subscribe to me if you haven't already. I will be discussing retargeting, geotargeting, because they're really flavor of the month. They're nifty, great tactics that can work now, won't necessarily work next year or the same way next year. A quick example: Facebook used to allow you to specifically target high net worths who earned specifically either $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, because they actually worked with these other. I think it was at Cambridge Analytica. I think at that point, they had access to information that would allow an advertiser to know who they were directed their marketing for. So if you're selling $100,000, $200,000 high ticket dollar investment or property or something, you can just have these ads sit in front of people that have a net worth of $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million plus. Can't do that anymore. They took that option off. And again, so a lot of strategies are built on that. And ways to work that algorithm. Now it's not even available anymore. So that's the reason why I won't talk about those specifics in this training platform. I'll be doing that free on YouTube. But as far as marketing goes, the whole point of this is understanding what you should and should not be doing. Okay. As far as your business is concerned. So let's look at what you could be doing, which is what a lot of companies think about doing, which is, hey, let me hire a marketing agency. So I want to quickly break down to let you know what happens when you look at going for a marketing agency, because this is what happens, right? Because you start it yourself, you realize how complicated it is, and you think, oh God, I just want to spend some money and get someone else to come in and take over for me. But this is what happens. When you speak to a marketing agency, and I have spoken to many of them, and believe me, I've thrown hundreds and hundreds of thousands over the years into these marketing companies, and sometimes they've worked, sometimes they have worked if I've kept with them long enough, and a lot of times they've just been a monumental disappointment. Because this is how it goes. This is what the interaction's like. The interaction is, the first thing they're going to talk to you about once you've found them is they're going to give you a roadmap, right? And what that roadmap is essentially it's their strategies. Okay? Oops, I missed the guy there. This roadmap, it's their strategies, it's their template. And what they're doing here is they're selling you on why this works. They're going to be going through that whole sales process with you here in terms of, oh, this is how these are the kind of results we've achieved. Oh, we've worked with similar companies to yours in the past. They'll start name dropping a few. They'll start trying to draw similarities in as many places as they can. They're going to talk to you about how they work, how they work with their clients, how close they are with you, how they like to get really deep, how they like to really deep dive into what it is that you're doing as a business, and so that they can best represent you out there. It's all a sales pitch. Okay. So they're just trying to access you. You're trying to access them. They're trying to figure out how much money you've got. And so then you'll start talking about budgets, and they'll give you their standard menu of what's on option. So you have to pay down, or you have to commit to a certain type of payment. That's what happens here. You're basically saying, yep, okay, so your service fee per month is like 5 or 10K, and then there's going to be an advertising budget on top. Or maybe it's $2,000 if there's a smaller company, and then they have that's the service fee. And then the advertising budget's going to be on top of that. So what happens next is you end up meeting their team. Okay. And you end up having, let me just do that again. I was a really bad looking human. You end up meeting like the media buyer. You'll meet the creative. This is a woman. And you'll meet a few other people. And then what they're going to be doing is they're going to be telling you about how they do X, Y, Z, right? They're going to be talking to you about all the different things that they're great at and how they're going to implement those strategies for you. And they're going to make you feel very involved, very welcome indeed. And everything's going to be happy and happy-go-lucky at this point. What happens next? Well, the next thing that happens is deployment. All right. They're going to deploy whatever you've agreed to doing in this section here. All right. Now something happens here though. Remember this fee? You've got that service fee that's got to go in every month. So that's the blue one here. But now you're having to pay the advertising budget. So let's say your service fee is 10 grand and you've agreed to a $15,000 a month advertising budget. You're happy to pay it because you're hoping that $15,000 is going to get you $100,000 in return, right? Because that's the perfect scenario. So that's the green there, the green dollar sign. That's your marketing budget. So now this is deployed. It's out there in the big wide world, whether it's TV, whether it's new media and it's like all digital. So it's all social media and that kind of thing and affiliate networks. Maybe it's traditional media. Maybe you're advertising on TVs and radio, whatever the case is. It doesn't matter. The fact is it's deployed. It's out there. Okay. You've agreed to whatever strategy that they've pitched you. And that strategy was probably something that they can have a high markup on, by the way, because again, it comes from their template. They might have a predefined network or affiliate network or some kind of, they may have an agreement with their media buyers where if they keep bulk ordering the same sort of thing, they'll be able to keep getting a higher margin or maintain a certain margin. So that's normally where they want to go anyway, because they're in business too. They want to make money. They want to make you money by giving you a good advertising campaign, but they want to make themselves money. They deploy, and then 30 days later, you get a report. Okay? And then this is where me, or anyone else out there, small to medium enterprise, looks at this and says, "Ooh, what have you done? Have we got any deals from this?" Okay, so some people are looking at our website or our products, but like, how is this working? And what happens is, inevitably, the company are gonna, this little group here are gonna evaluate some of those statistics and think, what could they lean on further? What could they prioritize a bit more? What could they take money off? And the point is that you're going to go into another 30-day round and it starts over again. You probably had to increase your advertising budget. That's going to happen every month for at least 3 to 4 months before you start seeing any real results. And that's just through my own experiences. You might get lucky. Good luck to you. But that's typically what happens. The prices of the service fee, okay, they may stay the same somewhat, but what happens is they may need to bring in someone else. They may have to bring in a different director or someone on the creative side or someone who understands, who's a bit more of a wizard when it comes to pay-per-click campaigns. And so that service fee may start going up too. The advertising budget will always be creeping upwards anyway. So that's what's going to happen. And unless you're a big company, you've got a lot of money to spend, because your budgets could be going from 20K per month to 50K to even 100K. And that's, you've got to be okay to let that go. You've got to treat this entire organization, this entire thing, like taking on a new employee. You don't know how good they're going to be. You're going to give them 3 months probation. You're going to hope that in that time they're going to start to show deliverables. But when you're talking about this kind of output of capital per month, it can be it's very difficult to swallow. It's a very difficult pill to swallow when it comes to a startup. I mean, even when I've been starting up my private equity companies, and I'm putting out some really big money out there. We're pulling in millions, so I'm okay to put 50 grand a month on marketing. 15,000 of which is just on Google pay-per-click, another 10,000 just on Facebook campaigns every single month, plus the service fee, which is I think 10,000 at the time. It went from 5 to 10,000 over the course of 3 months because they brought some other people in. That was what I did then, but even then it wasn't bringing in huge numbers. It was just something that we needed to have happen just to gain some consistent brand awareness out there. But That's when you're dealing with that kind of money. What if you're not immediately? Well, you've got to start smaller, like the way I have in the past. And there are ways to do that because that's what we need to speak about. We're looking at ways to do this. You've heard me say this 100 times. Low cost, no cost. You'll want to look for low cost or no cost methods. Now, no cost, obviously that's going to come down to you accessing, social media platforms and organically just trying to build awareness to try and get people to recognize and know your brand, even by contacting distributors and potential partners directly through that. Hey, I built some of my biggest networks like this just through Twitter, just finding out who was hashtagging investments, find out which of those people were represented companies or were companies, contacted them directly through Twitter and ended up finding connections that way. And if they made some money, I started promoting campaigns on Twitter. We'll talk about the actual, the specifics, not specifics in terms of those campaigns, but specifics in terms of what certain social media platforms are good for. But the whole point is to use this concept, low cost or no cost. And how do you take this lens? You have the DSSD, which is you're designing your deal, structuring your product so you know how much money is available for you and anyone else in the mix. Is there scale on the supply side, on the demand side, and your deployment strategy? How are you going to distribute that out there? You've got that. Now you want to look for a low cost, no cost way at achieving that. Because that's really, these two things are the glue. If you've got these two perfect, you're always going to be making money. You're not going to be making money. So the question is how do you apply low cost, no cost? Well, remember, let's not get confused here. Who is working with you? You're working with a distribution network, a network of partners. Now, I'm not talking about unqualified partners. I'm talking about qualified partners, like I've said 1,000 times. Those companies who are working with you stand on their own 2 feet and they are advertising themselves. They are going through or have gone through this mix. They have done all of this or are currently doing this. Okay? They have their own direct in-house marketing. Whatever the case is, they are marketing for you. That's what you want to recognize here. It's not about how much you're going to spend on your campaigns. You're going to have to spend something in either initially or eventually in terms of advertising to these guys to get them on board, but you won't be doing so much when it comes to advertising to your buyer groups. And that's what you want to really remember. That's what I want this entire module, every section of this module, I'm going to go through it, but you've got to be remembering this. You're not just trying to sell your product to the end user. You want your partners to be involved in this, and you want to share that cost. Or if anything, you want to remove all costs in terms of your marketing. And because that's the reason why they're going to work with you, because you set up your structure. Because there's enough of a margin here for them to warrant that expense. They will pay for this if they're getting paid well enough. That doesn't mean they have to get paid a huge amount per deal, but the volume's got to be there. The supply and demand's got to be there. So it's really evaluating your company and going back to it. Because what does this do? It creates a herd mentality. If you've got that many companies promoting your product, if you've got that many businesses out there using different strategies, some are using events, some are using marketing, traditional marketing. So that you're talking about TV, radio, billboards. Then you've got new media marketing, and they're using social, all the different social media platforms out there, affiliate networks, anything to do with online, and they're constantly bombarding these different channels. You've got this amazing amount of reach and frequency. And what do I mean by reach and frequency? How far your brand gets. All right. That's your brand. It's how far it's getting, how many people it's touching, and how many times it keeps hitting them. That's your frequency. And if all of these companies are constantly bombarding and they're constantly paying a certain, maybe if you've got 5 companies paying, let's say they put the bottom, the most cheapest campaigns together. And these companies are paying $2,000 per month service fee, $5,000 per month on advertising. It's not a huge amount of money. It's not going to get you a huge amount of reach or frequency in terms of this one company. But if you've got 10 companies doing that, if you've got 20 companies doing that, 30 companies doing that, all presenting, promoting being ambassadors to your product or your service, you're getting a massive amount. And what does that lead to? The herd mentality in terms of customers are constantly seeing what's on offer. They're seeing your distributors, all the different companies that they can lean on, because remember why those distributors are very good for you? Not only are they taking on all the cost, but because their customers are relying on their distributors' faith in them. So if the distributors that they know or the companies that they are familiar with, they trust and believe in your brand, that's, you're being propped up too as far as your own status is concerned as an entity, as a company, or a personal brand if that's what you are. But the fact is, you've got a lot of people just following suit. It doesn't just work for customers. The more and more you do this with distributors, other distributors will see it too. They're going to start seeing all these other companies selling and promoting for you. They're going to think, well, it must be good. It must be great. I need to probably get in there too. Let me just contact the product provider and find out whether or not, I can get involved in this. What commissions are being paid, or what's the fee? What can I potentially earn out of this? So this is how you kind of create and build that herd mentality in branding. And it snowballs. So this is our snowball diagram. I hope you can see this. I know it's a bit bright on that side. But let me explain this, because it's kind of what I was just saying, but it's a nicer pictorial version of it. Your distribution network could be that small, 5, 10, 20 companies, maybe 1, 2, or 5, whatever the case may be. Their sales volume will be relatively decent, but they're all collectively marketing, right? That's the biggest thing that's happening. Marketing and communications is up here. They're the largest. They're collectively marketing. That means everyone's being hit with your brand. Have you read brand books about branding, or watched any of these YouTube moguls about how important it is to establish your brand? That is really what's happening here on steroids. Okay. You've got all these companies promoting your brand. And as we go down this chain, as you can see, it snowballs. As these snowballs are getting bigger, that marketing and communications are growing. Even if you've got, and this is really the trick here, as far as your distribution network, if you've got 100 companies selling, or 5, 10, 200 companies selling for you, even if they're not getting deals, so you could be counting, because of course you're the guy who wants to count the money, right? At the end of every 30 days, you're looking at how many deals have been done. Okay. And you think, well, we've got all these distribution companies, these distributors, these channel partners. They're doing all this marketing, but our sales volume, it really wasn't that different from last month. But the thing is, even though some of these companies may not be closing deals for you, they're still marketing. They're still paying for their marketing campaigns. Their campaigns are going on monthly. Your reach and frequency in terms of your brand recognition is consistently growing. So whilst you may take a dip in deals because it's a bad month, maybe it's that time of the year, maybe your product follows a certain trend or follows certain seasons per year. So you're taking a dip, but marketing and communications are still up because those companies have still been presenting you. You're still going to benefit absolutely greatly. And of course, what happens at the end of a snowball, right? It crashes, it splatters, right? So before we get here, it splatters, because this is what we're going to talk about in the next section, which is essentially how do you restart this process? What do you do to get it started again? Because you never want that snowball to splatter. So next section is evaluating this and how to get this started. So I'll see you there.